Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Rattenbury. My student ID is 475079352. My social justice issue that I have chosen to research and talk about today is on elder abuse, most specifically elder abuse cases in Queensland increasing. So I'm just going to turn this around now and just share the screen there. So just to run you through what I'll be speaking about today. So first of all, we've got the purpose of the research and the scope, an outline of what elder abuse is, some facts about elder abuse, the methodology I used in this research and analysis, the stakeholders involved in the elder abuse situation, legislation covering elder abuse, some media articles related to this, a summary of the key findings, then I've got some discussion and analysis as to what I found, and then a conclusion. I've also put together some recommendations, and then I have the references to support all of the above. So just looking at the purpose, as stated, the purpose of the project is to determine if elder abuse cases in Queensland are increasing. Now, the scope of the project, what I did was that I did a lot of research on information, statistics. There's quite a lot of data and analysis there. I've listed a couple of the sites that I used and the reports as well. Excuse me, there's lots of government websites out there which have information on elder abuse as well. Excuse my voice, it's going. Also, there's a lot of social services and community support agencies that deal with elder abuse. Legislation, I've listed some there, but I'll go through those. Reports. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of discussion papers and commentary, particularly by several legal firms on this subject. And also I looked at various media articles on the topic. So what is elder abuse? Surprisingly, the term elder abuse or abuse of older persons is not defined by common law or any legislative framework here in Australia. The one definition that most often is used and comes up is this one, which is it is a single or repeated act or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is any expectation of trust which causes harm or distress to an older person. And that definition comes from the World Health Organization. So just expanding on that a little bit more. So what I found was commonly there's 5 types of elder abuse that are referred to. The first one is physical. So it's what you can see. It's normally pain, injury, or a combination of both. It can also be a change in appearance, attitude, or behaviour, which can be tricky. Emotional or psychological. So any act that causes emotional pain, anguish or distress, or is demeaning to a person. So neglect. So failing to meet the needs of an older person, basic needs such as food, shelter, clothing, warmth, or even withholding medication is neglect. Sexual abuse, so any behaviour of a sexual nature that is done to an older person without their consent. Financial, so the theft or misuse of an older person's money, assets, or their property. Now there's another one that only sort of came about in March this year, and it's called coercive control. So a pattern of controlling behaviour to establish and maintain control over another person. So on the 6th of March this year, Queensland introduced a standalone criminal offence of coercive control by passing the criminal law, Coercive Control and Affirmative Consent and Other Legislation Amendment Act 2024. It's a long one, but it's expected to commence next year and will carry a maximum jail sentence of 14 years. So this is a big step for Queensland. So just some facts for you on elder abuse. So elder abuse, in all of the sort of studies and research I read, was reported as being underreported. What that means is that a lot of people within the studies choose not to report it at all. Some of them, they noted feelings of shame or embarrassment, which were factors contributing to that. Elderly people by nature are quite stoic. They tend to just get on with it. They don't want to cause a fuss, they don't want to create a problem, and it just isn't simply reported. Sadly, I found that in 91% of elder abuse cases, the perpetrator was a family member, and 1 in 5 were the victim's adult child. There's a growing phenomenon of inheritance in patients. This is interesting. It's actually where adult children become frustrated by longer waits for wealth transfer from parents who are living longer, and then resort to elder abuse for their own financial gain. So a 2021 study by the Australian Institute of Family Studies showed that 14.8% of people aged 65 years and older had experienced elder abuse. In 2023, more than 926,000 Queenslanders were over 65 years, with the ABS projecting that by 2053, more than 1 in 5 of us will be 65 years or older. Now, on a national level, I looked at that as well. Almost 1 in 6 older Australians experienced abuse in the 2022 to 2023 period. And overseas studies have shown that abuse of older people affects between 2% to 12%, and it affects both men and women. So looking at the methodology of the data collection, so I basically started with researching high-level websites to obtain a better understanding of the topic. There were a lot of different studies and data out there on the topic over the past few years, both on a Queensland and federal level. There are many government agencies such as Queensland Police and community support organisations that I looked at. Then I also tried to work out, what legislation covers elder abuse? What remedies are available within the legal system? And again, just in conjunction with different papers that legal firms had put together. And then I also looked at media articles related to the topic. So in my view, this was an efficient, valid and reliable way of undertaking the research and putting together what I have today. Now, the stakeholders are state and federal government. There's many government agencies in this process and system. I've listed a few there: Queensland Police, the court system, Department of Health, Seniors Disability, Attorney General's Department and the Office of the Public Guardian. There's a lot. Other stakeholders include the Australian Human Rights Commission, Queensland Law Society and law firms, legal aid, community support agencies such as Seniors Legal and Support Services and Relationship Australia. There's also the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit and Helpline. So what legislation covers elder abuse here in Queensland? So the law or act covering elder abuse is actually the Domestic and Family Violence Protection Act 2012. Elder abuse is actually a form of domestic violence. It doesn't have its own specific act. So this is the one that covers that. And then of course, Queensland Police have the powers to enforce that. The criminal law coercive control, that's the one I mentioned earlier that has just been introduced and should come into effect next year. Another one that may cover elder abuse is the Criminal Code Act 1899. So there are several offences in there that may apply to these situations, including assault, sexual assault, stalking, and property offences such as stealing and fraud. Now, the Human Rights Act 2019, depending on the circumstances in which it occurs, abuse of older persons can also be a violation of fundamental human rights. Now, everyone is entitled to enjoy the human right without distinction or discrimination of any kind, and of course that includes older people. So generally, the Commonwealth has the power to make laws relating to social security, financial institutions, aged care, super. Laws relating to guardianship, administration, powers of attorney, and most criminal laws lie within the states and territories. So this is where it becomes a bit muddy. Now, in terms of media coverage, I found compared to the other social issues at the time, of the time, elder abuse was quite low in coverage. The main ones that you see in the media in recent times are youth crime around mental health, Indigenous related matters, and of course the homelessness and rental crisis that we have at the moment. Now, I think that this is due, again, underreporting. You'll see that feature a lot, so perhaps it makes it appear that the issue is not as prevalent or as important as it actually is. Youth crime and homelessness, for example, are one of the major issues affecting society as a whole right now. And in Queensland, as we know, the recent government election and the focus on these major policy issues, as opposed to elder abuse, and continue to be at the forefront of the media's eye. And as we know, the media is at its heart about increasing readership and reach, and it would generally respond to the major issues of the day, and sadly elder abuse is not at the forefront at the moment. Now, I've just put up a couple of articles there that I wanted to highlight. So on the left, The Senior is a publication produced for senior readers. Basically, you'll see it, if not online, a lot of clubs and different libraries and things will have this publication in a paper form for seniors to read. So this one has come about based on stats from community groups, like for example their Uniting Care, where they've said 63.9% of cases came through their helpline in the 2022-2023 year. Now, the one on the right has come about by a media release. So the Queensland government, you may have even seen some of the ads, ran a campaign on elder abuse, spotting the signs, asking, are you okay? So that one was a public publication, and it, as I said, was in response to a media release by the government. So key findings. So there it is again, underreporting. It's difficult to quantify just how extensive the problem of elder abuse is in Queensland. Now, there was a strategy put out recently by the Queensland government called an Age-Friendly Queensland. The Queensland Senior Strategy, 5-year strategy from 24 to 29, costing the Queensland government over $10 billion. The Queensland government has committed to a system-wide reform to respond to coercive control. That's that new legislation that's just come through. So this involves increased awareness raising in the community, training, education, and change management across the justice system. It's a large strategy, and one that I hope will be watched closely over that 5-year period. So just some findings in 2021-22, more than 3,800 elder abuse calls were received by Uniting Care and saw a 15% increase in abuse notifications. In 23-24, the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit stated that 2,674 Queenslanders reported that they had experienced or were at risk of elder abuse. In 2023, more than 926,000 Queenslanders were over 65, and the ABS projecting that in 30 years, more than 1 in 5 Queenslanders are going to be 65 years or older. Australia-wide, the National Elder Abuse phone line recorded 9,085 calls from July 23 until the end of May 24, which was sadly a 36% jump from the same period the prior year. Some other things I just wanted to mention before we go on to the discussion and analysis was that whilst $10 billion was mentioned there with this current strategy, the previous Palaszczuk government had spent $7.9 million annually on elder abuse prevention and intervention, including through the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit. But based on the findings I just highlighted, elder abuse continues to increase, so something is missing. So from my review and research on the topic, I believe longer life expectancies and family cost of living pressures are resulting in the inheritance in patients and in turn increasing cases of elder abuse. Particularly concerning is the steep increase in the number of perpetrators living with their victims, a staggering 69.9% increase over the past 5 years. Australia has a rapidly ageing population, as I've noted earlier. Abuse of older people is an increasingly important public health problem. The global population of people aged 60 years and over is predicted to more than double, from 900 million in 2015 to about 2 billion in 2050. So we're not alone in this issue. It's going to become a big problem. At a state level, the Queensland government has recognised that it currently lacks the tools to accurately determine the prevalence of abuse, and in particular financial elder abuse occurring here in Queensland. Appropriate investment in comprehensive research of domestic violence in the context of older victims and in relation to abuse against older persons generally, in my opinion, remains lacking. So it was quite difficult to try and form a direct comparison between, is it increasing year on year, because the data is lacking. It's not being able to compare apples with apples. There's holes in it. So what I've concluded is, based on the correlation between known statistics on Queensland elder abuse data, our ageing population, national and global published data and studies, and the related difficult social and economic issues that we are facing and will continue to face, for example, cost of living and financial pressure, rental and housing crisis, I've concluded that yes, elder abuse cases in Queensland are definitely increasing. So some recommendations that I am hoping will come about is increased and appropriate investment in this important issue. $10 billion is a lot that the government has set aside, but studies all highlighted that statistics on elder abuse are there. They've got holes in it, as I've mentioned, but there's little information on how the implemented strategies are progressing. It definitely, in my view, needs a formal review if you're going to throw money at it, you need to make sure it's working, and I'm not sure. So ongoing review of that senior strategy I mentioned earlier. It's a 5-year strategy. I'd like to know, is that investment in services to prevent and respond to the abuse of abuse of older people actually working? I'd hope for some increased media involvement and awareness. We've got the focus on cost of living, financial and the housing rental crisis, but we need to link in the increasing and related growth in elder abuse, particularly with that financial side, which is the major one on this issue, and it being directly linked to the older person's children who are doing the abuse. I think a united legislative approach would help, which includes the actual definition of elder abuse. It starts there, that's the basic. The term elder abuse or abuse of older persons is not even yet defined by common law or in any legislative framework. As I highlighted at the moment, we're using the Domestic Violence Act to cover that. I think having something more directly related to elder abuse would be extremely helpful. So I hope you've enjoyed what I've provided today and given you some food for thought. I found it a very interesting topic to research and study. I found it sad. I found it surprising, and I hope you have too. So I've got some references there. If anyone is interested, please let me know, and I'm happy to share. Thank you very much.